Want to do better? Then it's time to change the story. Welcome to our show about new visions currently transforming the world through the confluence of art, tech, and innovation. And now your hosts, Michael Ashley and Neil Sahota.
Welcome to another episode of Changing the Story. We have an amazing guest today, Dr. Maher ALbitar. He has extensive experience in anatomic clinical pathology, hematology, and molecular pathology. Most recently, Dr. Albitar was the Senior Vice President and Chief Medical Officer at NeoGenomics Laboratories. Dr. Albitar has published more than 300 peer-reviewed papers, book chapters, and review articles. He is the lead inventor on more than 50 different patents and patent applications. He is a well-recognized leader in molecular and genomic diagnosis research and development. Dr. Albitar, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Neil and Michael. Just for clarifications, I am the CEO and the CMO of Genomic Testing Cooperative today.
Well, great, we'll update it on your bio.
Thank you for being here, Dr. Albitar. As a visionary, what is the story that you want to bring to the world?
Well, our story is focused on making genomics the basis of the practice of oncology and hematology. Our story is to bring genomics into everyday practice of oncology and taking care of patients. We are doing it differently by cooperations, which is really a revolution in the field of diagnostics. Diagnostics in general is work based on silos, different companies, and as a matter of fact, even different institutions and academic institutions work separately. We are changing that and making it based on cooperations and bringing the advances of genomics through this cooperation.
So Dr. Albitar, I know there's a lot of people who may not be familiar with genomics and its role in medicine and how it might help us do precision medicine. Maybe you could share a little bit about genomics and the importance of it in healthcare overall.
Well, if I focus on only oncology, cancer in principle, it is genomic disease. So cancer starts by making changes to our genome, to some of the cells, and this is when cancer starts. So it is practically the basic for all cancers. And targeted therapy today and precision medicine really rely on finding out these molecular abnormalities and trying to target them. But in addition to that, even if two individuals have the same type of cancers, they might really the cancer as well as the treatment as well as the outcome might be different dependent on the genomic background of the two individuals. And so it is very important to understand the genomics in the cancer as well as in the host. And that's really what's gonna change how oncology practice.
So for people that are just beginning to understand how genomics works, what was the breakthrough? Because we're talking about precision medicine and a different way of dealing with cancer. What is the breakthrough from a technological standpoint that allows you to reach these advances in what you're doing today?
For all practical purpose, revolution of genomics started when the whole human genome started, which was around 1991. And the nation actually spent more than $2.5 billion to sequence the first human genome. And the human genome was sequenced and finished around 2005. And after spending $2.5 billion for that, now we can really do it within a week or less than a week, and it costs us, at least material-wise, about $1,000 or $2,000. This is where the genomic revolution started. But finding the sequence of the genomes and the detail is the easy part, but understanding and figuring out how to use this massive data that we generate from genomics is the hardest part and the most complex part. And this is where the current innovation is taking place. And this is where cooperation is needed to take these information, massive informations, and use it in the clinical practice in everyday oncology practice, as well as a matter of fact, it can be expanded to all other diseases, especially autoimmune diseases, inflammatory diseases, even the infectious diseases. It's relevant for that. But at least for our company, we are focused on oncology and on cancer.
Wow.
Given the power of genomics here, I mean, how far along are we in actually using it to do some of these things? Like, I'm sure a lot of people are probably thinking, with COVID-19 right now, are we trying to use genomics to help combat the virus or even find a vaccine?
Absolutely. There are a lot of work going on using genomics to try to figure out why, for example, get the infections, but just walking around has no symptoms. Others may have some symptoms, but not that severe, versus some other patients, they need to go to ICU, and it is very severe and can really cause the death of these patients. So genomics is currently being investigated to distinguish between these people. In addition, of course, it is always genomics as well as what other diseases or what other changes that happen to these individuals that make them different. At the same time, we are looking at the genomic of the virus itself and how it is changing from one region to the next regions. So it is very active work currently going on using genomics in COVID-19 crisis.
So we had a guest recently that came on the show and was talking about personalized education. And so the idea behind it was, for the longest time in our classrooms, our teachers were speaking to all students at once and addressing the students as if all the students were at the same level generally. But the breakthrough that this company had was they were looking at the students on an individual basis and assessing them to see where they were at, right? And if you knew where they were at, then you could teach them accordingly, and then they could progress accordingly. It seems like we're doing something similar with the work that you're doing when it comes to oncology, and that you are targeted the treatment based on the specific genetic makeup of the individual. And I wonder if you could talk about what this bodes for the entire medical community, that we can begin to treat patients based on their specific genetic background, and why this is so important.
That's exactly correct. This is where current medicine is going. So we look at the person as a whole and how his constitution is different from the next patient's. But at the same time, we look at the cancer itself, and we know there are no two cancers the same. Each cancer is also individual, and these cancers also, they keep on changing. Because cancers, in a sense, they are smart, or they adapt to how we treat them, and they try to come up with new tricks to survive. So it is a continuous process, and this is where the genomics and what we do in terms of analyzing the genomic changes in the cancer as well as in the human, trying to put them together. And doing that, we need very highly sophisticated mathematicals and deep learning artificial intelligence to allow us to do that. But the key things about it, one individual company, one individual group cannot, and it requires cooperation from multiple institutions. I mean, as a matter of fact, if you take the issues about testing for the COVID-19, in my opinion, if we had more corporations the testing would have been really delivered to individuals and to the country much more faster than what we saw happening each group, each institution, and each company trying to develop their own test. Versus what we are trying to do is that we all work together and disseminate the knowledge and the information to various laboratories when it comes to genomics and cancer treatment.
It's interesting you talk about kind of collaboration and sharing of data and artificial intelligence, because in my IBM Watson days, I remember there was a Japanese woman that she wasn't feeling well, and her longtime doctor couldn't figure out what was going on. She saw a bunch of specialists, and for several months that they couldn't pinpoint what was going wrong. Everything they tried didn't work. And they finally said, let's try IBM Watson. And so Watson took all the work all these doctors did, and also studied her genomics and a couple other things, and basically suggested that she had 2 rare forms of leukemia, which actually was immediately discounted, but they tested for them, and she tested positive for both of them. And they were actually able to, start a treatment plan. But I think it kind of shows some of the challenges in that, one, there's probably a little bit of lack of trust in some of the technology, and 2, that people aren't talking as much. And I think your example of COVID-19 is a good example of that, where everyone's kind of racing off and things in a silo, and maybe we move faster if there's more cooperation and collaboration. I mean, given these 2 big challenges, what can we do, or what are people doing to overcome this, so that we can kind of accelerate our ability to diagnose and treat people?
Right, and I must say, diagnosis and accurate evaluation of patient and accurate understanding of what's going on in the patient is not that simple. And currently there's a lot of subjectivities and variations between different individuals and where you go. And no question, in medicine, we need more solid data to drive whether it is diagnosis or even making decisions for therapy. And this is where I think data will make a huge difference. Also, informations, and especially when information are collected based on what we are doing, which are really more accurate based on the genomics, rather than based on how you feel about the patient or what's the symptoms only. Currently, there are so many ways where we can quantify the symptoms as well as quantify the abnormalities in the patients. And if we put all that into algorithms, this is where more precise diagnosis, more precise decision can be made for the sake of these patients. But that's required data, and you cannot really collect data if you do not cooperate and collaborate and get this big data together and have it to work together. So to get big data, you need to collect that data, as you know, need to be collected in very consistent fashion. And the advantage of our company is that we are trying to standardize the generation of this data, especially the genomic data, because it's a new field, So we are trying to standardize how this data is generated, so when it is used in big data for analysis, it can be more useful and more practical for making decisions. We all know today that, frequently there are a lot of things based on standard of care. They don't really read what's the standard of care or what's the classifications. So you need to go out of that standards and figure out what's really out there in a database, in large database, that's similar to the patient, this individual patient you are dealing with, and come up with answer and say, you know, based on 100 cases or 200 cases or even 20 cases that we can really find that are similar to this situation, the treatment that worked, you know, for this particular patient is so and so. And actually, you know, let's try it, especially after we failed everything else. So this is very important, and this is why we are different.
So now that you have these capabilities, and we're now beginning to treat patients on an individual basis based on their genetic background, what does this bode for health outcomes? Let's say it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now. What does the cancer landscape look like based on the current applications and what you're doing in this field?
Well, our hope and the hope of the entire scientific community is cancer similar to other chronic diseases, you know, no different than diabetes and high blood pressure. People, you know, get it and survive it and live with it and go on with their life. That's really what's the goal. But I must emphasize, we're just starting this revolution. We are on the in the beginning toward this path, you know. But our goal to accelerate this path and to get there faster than if we were to work individually and separately.
Right.
So it's interesting. I like the word we're starting this revolution, or the phrase. You know, it sounds like as we were expanding out to different areas, what are the things we need to kind of fuel that expansion or fuel that revolution?
Again, I think it is collaborations and, in my opinion, you know, as well as education. I mean, for all fairness, this science and this technology is coming to this field very recently. Even currently, medical schools, I'm afraid, they really don't teach some of these very advanced, you know, methods and very advanced approaches. So, there's a lot of education need to be done for, you know, to educate. First of all, here is insurance companies and payers for healthcare. Second, educate physicians. Third, educate the public about this. And you know, I always believe in grassroots initiatives that really make change, whether it is in medicine or not. Patients nowadays, they go to their physician and tell them, you know, we need this and we're likely to do the following test and so on. So education is very important, and you know, making everybody understand the value of this kind of informations and how it's going to really change the practice, as at the same time reducing the cost on healthcare. You know, we all complain, and we know that our healthcare cost is really very high, and it keeps on going higher. But bringing in new technology, sometimes as a reflex, people don't want to, they think it's going to really add to the current cost. No, the whole purpose is to reduce the cost, to replace old technology that it is no longer valuable, and coming up with a new technology that's going to be more precise and less costly. And frankly, this is where genomic is coming, and it is going to replace a lot of diagnostic methodology currently used and take it to a new level. But on top of that, you give a patient very expensive therapy, but if this therapy is not going to work for that patient, frankly, you are not saving money. You are wasting a lot of money in addition to the suffering and perhaps compromising or doing harm to the patient. By choosing the right therapy for that particular patients, you are saving, and saving money, but on top of that, you are saving suffering, and improving the care of these patients. So all these actually need to be explained, and the public, as well as, in my opinion, the business people in healthcare need to understand that and adapt new technology and accept it, and figure out how to use it better.
Well, we definitely want to see this revolution happen, what you're talking about, and to definitely want to reduce suffering. So how can people learn more about your work? How can they get in touch with you and find out about the great stuff that you're doing?
They can reach us online, check our website, which is genomictestingcooperative.com, Genomic Testing Cooperative, oneword.com. So we have a lot of information there, and we are located in California, Irvine, California, and welcome anybody to come and visit as soon as this is allowed and the COVID-19 is behind us.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for being on our show today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Albitar. This is wonderful.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Hey, if you like today's show, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment.
If you've been enjoying the Changing the Story podcast series, please subscribe and share it with your friends.
Thank you.